Hello, I'm Frank Congilose, and welcome to the Institute of Responsible Wealth. Our guest today is Jaquelyn Wieland, Solutions Provided and Maintaining Your Spin. And Jaquelyn, it's so great to have you here with us today.
It's great to be here with you, Frank.
And I guess the place that we should start is maybe if you can give us a little background on your two organizations that you're the CEO and founder of, Solutions Provided and Maintaining Your Spin, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing and
Okay.
how it works.
Great. Well, Solutions Provided was the first company that I formed, and we formed that in 1996. It's a human performance consulting firm, and Solutions Provided was formed on the idea of being a virtual consulting firm. So we had no employees, and we contracted with all of the different consultants that would go into organizations. Our client base was predominantly Fortune 100 to Fortune 500 companies, and then we also deal with national nonprofits in their leadership teams. The groups that we work with in companies are the sales organizations and the leadership teams, the marketing organizations, and then the executive tier. So we provide executive coaching, leadership development, teamwork, and then sales performance work.
Is your market getting better, more opportunity? Are you seeing it changing? What are you seeing right now?
You know, it's interesting. The last couple of years, I would say the market has been different, and people have held on to budgets tighter. I haven't seen companies invest in people development and nurturing as much as they did in the past. I think we're seeing a shift in that. You know, companies are investing differently, and it's because of cost.
Absolutely.
You know, so we see a lot more online learning, we see the e-learning, we see the web-based learning. We don't see as much traditional learning, and there are certain programs that still need to be in traditional formats where people experience each other and they have that face time and eye time. What I think we will see is we'll see many more virtual learning formats as technology and cost meet. We'll see a lot more virtual face-to-face learning environments. And so what we see, to your original question, is we see a lot more complexity in the workforce. We see employees that they're performing at higher levels, but they're working in very compressed environments. We see stress being higher, significantly higher, and communication is different. And what I mean by that is generationally communication has changed. So where you and I grew up in body language, and
Right.
that was such a key thing in traditional sales training. It's like, you know, what does the body language say? What is the facial expression? That eye contact, how you shake. You know, very traditional, tactical
Right.
human performance issues. And now, of course, communication is through thumbs.
Yeah. You get a text and you
Yeah.
sit there and you go, geez, I don't know how I should take that. You know,
Yeah.
did they mean that?
Is it literal? So it's
Yeah, exactly.
there's a very literal aspect. How do I interpret? And so we have communication, whether it's email, voicemail, or text, and not as much in what I would call traditional conversation, face to face. What's interesting, I was talking to, you know, what I deemed a younger person about this, and his comment was, he said, well, it's just so much more efficient to text. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, I can send it to all of these different people. You know, I could send it to 20 to 50 people, the same message, and I don't have to deal with them. And I was like, oh, okay. Because for me, the whole thing is about human relations. And yet,
So it's always been with us.
yeah,
Same thing.
and it's, whether it's one-to-many or one-on-one, the whole idea of texting is it's very task-oriented,
Right.
and it's very hands-off. And yet we...
Kind of cold, I would
It
say.
is. But yet generationally, we have people who are growing up communicating with their thumbs, and their eyes are on a little bitty screen, and when you watch them, even if they're beside the person they're talking to, they're transmitting opposed to transacting.
Interesting.
And so we're seeing a whole change and shift in how people interact with each other. And you know, you and I grew up, just because we're a little older, interacting, and we're seeing interreacting. So we interact with a screen, we interact with our device, we interact on the phone, we leave messages. There's a heightened sense of urgency Expectations are like, I need it now. There's not downtime, there's not time to think, and that's where we see the compression.
Gotcha.
And so when we look at it, we go, you're solving a lot of problems in a very short bandwidth, but in that you're causing problems because you're not allowing people time to decompress, to have time to think through it, and then to look at the cause and effect of what they're doing. And so we solve one and we create others. We'll talk about that a little more.
One of the things that I've noticed in working with you and your organization is that you have a variety of tools for the individual side of how you work with them, as well as you have tools in which you work with organizations.
Yes.
And trying to get people to align. Maybe you can just take a minute and tell us a little bit about what you're doing along those two lines, the individual and the organization.
Okay. Well, we use the same tools for both, oddly enough.
Okay.
Since 1996 or 1998, we've used the Berkman method as our foundational assessment tool. And that is a very solid behavioral assessment tool that looks at individuals from the standpoint of their productive behavior, their stress, which is their reactive behavior, and then their need. Most people do not understand what their interpersonal, emotional, environmental need is. If they do, they don't understand how to communicate it in a way that can be heard. And so we help people and we coach executives on looking at their performance, their talent, their interest, how they react, the impact of that reaction on others, because they're leading teams and there's a fallout. And then we talk about their need and how to meet that need, how to keep it in a good place so they stay in productive behavior. The other tool that we work with and we're developing for a personal level is Alex, which is about aligning expectations. And that tool really helps leaders and their work teams line out their expectations of each other or of a work plan, and then cross-track those to see where there's misalignment. Where there's misalignment, there needs to be a conversation. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's just people have to practice alignment.
My experience with it, and our organization has gone through it with you, is when you understand how you process information and your natural abilities, and you understand how other people do, and then you can show them how to align that better, the productivity of both goes up.
Yes.
And the other side of that is the stress levels
Go down.
go down.
Yeah.
So we've found it to be very useful, and that's why I ask the question so that people can get an understanding as to what that actually will do for an individual in their organization.
Well, and thank you for saying that, Frank. And from the work that we've done, it's not a one time and a one size. It's no different than a marriage. You kind of have to commit to the plan. And when you start it and you start looking at behavioral differences and communication styles, you have to continue to revisit it. It's like an exercise program. Yep. You just have to stay on it and keep working with it, and then it becomes natural.
Jaquelyn, tell me a little bit about the launch of Maintaining Your Spin and where you're looking to go as far as your current audience, where you're looking to go in the future. And so tell us a little bit more.
Okay. We merged the brands of Solutions Provided and Maintaining Your Spin for the initial launch because we decided that made more sense, where at first we had looked at them as two separate things. So they're a merged brand now.
Great.
And the reason we did that, Frank, is individuals make up corporations and companies, and they make up entrepreneurial companies, and those individuals are who we're focused on. And so it's a natural fit that we have the individuals that we work with and we have the corporate side. We're predominantly focused as we launch. We made a strategic decision to focus on women. And we believe that our initial message and our offering is more receptive to the female consumer, and the demographic that we're really targeting is that woman between 35 and 65. We know that it'll wing out or wing down, but that's our initial area that we're focused on, and we're looking at that top 3%, 4% of the financial education level as people who would receive this.
How did you identify that as your targeted audience initially?
It was from the focus groups. Part of it is gut feel. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I look at the world I live in, I look where I play, and I look at what I know, and that's what I see going on in that demographic. And originally we said top 2%, and when I talk to people about that, it's hard for people to see themselves in the top 2%.
Right.
What I found out is if I said top 4%, they could live with that.
Gotcha.
So when we did the research and we said who is our demographic and who needs this, it's the people that are productive players in our economy that need it.
The people that have a lot going on is what I call it, which is, they're professionals.
Yeah.
They're still trying to maintain that family life. They've got, the spiritual side, and, they've got, as I call it, all the wealth building blocks running.
Exactly. And you and I may name those differently, but we're looking at people who we're looking at emotional balance, physical balance, mental balance, spiritual balance, and financial balance. And, conversations you and I had
Absolutely.
this summer where you and I determined there is some real alignment in
Absolutely.
what we're doing, because if people are concerned about their finances, and in finances it can be their job, their cash flow, it can be their future investment, how to pay for those kids, how to deal with aging parents, that in itself is a huge complex issue.
That's that 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, where you're sitting up at night worrying and thinking about those things for a lot of people.
Exactly. And so if you have that going on, and then you have couples that are concerned that their job is insecure, or they're making less and everything else is going up, and they're like, how do we stay at our watermark?
Right.
How do we just stay flat? That's big. So if the financial piece is compromised and stressed, it's really hard to be emotionally balanced. It's hard to stay physically and mentally balanced. And spiritual balance is kind of out of whack too.
It's the last thing that a lot of people often think about. They'll end up there last.
Yeah. And it's really a unique person who can keep that on the front end and then deal with all the others behind it. So our goal and our intent is to help people get those 5 rings into perspective and into balance. And I believe and know that communication is a big piece of that. That if you understand how to communicate in a healthy manner, and you understand how to goal set and put it out there in a very clear manner, then you can work through that. So that's really what maintaining your spin is about and what it intends to help people with. And while we're focused on women initially, we're focused on women and the people they love. And so we're focused on women and their families, we're focused on their partners, we're focused on their extended group, because ultimately that whole dynamic needs to be in alignment for each one of them to succeed.
I think it's great. And the timing of it, with regard to everything that's gone on in the economy, and there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I mean, giving people the coaching and the tools necessary to help them to get closer to the life that they want, to get in that balance, I think is great. So sounds like you have a great organization. I can't wait to see, maintaining your spin, coming to fruition and to being out there for a long period of time. And
we're pretty excited.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's one of those, it's wonderful spending time with you. It always is. You're just so insightful, and there's a natural alignment between what we think and what we believe and what you're doing. So Jaquelyn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a treat.
Very good.